Hello, my name is Karen Houppert, and I am the instructor for this course. So, welcome. And I thought I would begin by telling you a little bit about myself, and I've made a little video to do that. I would encourage you also to try and see whether you would like to use iMovie or perhaps you would like to use the voice thread, or barring that, just write up a brief bio and include your photograph and paste that in the discussion section so we can get to know each other a little bit before we start this class. So, welcome, and let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm the director of the MA in Writing program at Johns Hopkins, where I have been teaching off and on over the years since 2007. And I am in particular teaching courses in the nonfiction concentration and on both campuses and online. As for my writing life, I'm the author of 3 books and a contributor to many other ones. My first book was called The Curse, and it's a cultural history of menstruation and an investigation into the sanitary protection industry, and that came out in the 90s. My second book was called Home Fires Burning, Married to the Military for Better or Worse, and that was a book that was looking at wives whose husbands had been deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan and spending a year in the life of various military wives to see how feminism has and has not impacted military family policy. My third book is called Chasing Gideon, The Elusive Quest for Poor People's Justice, and that was a look at the public defender system in the United States and its many failures. I've spent most of my career working as a feature writer for various magazines, ranging from The Village Voice to The Nation to Mother Jones to the Washington Post magazine, where I was contract writer for a while and wrote some of my favorite cover stories, including this one called The Healing Arts, about a man named Bernard who lived in Baltimore, and his teenage son was shot by a neighbor when the son bounced his basketball into the neighbor's car and set the car alarm off. And Bernard was grappling with how to forgive his neighbor who was in prison and was up for parole. One of my favorite books is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, and I once wrote an essay for the Washington Post, as I also like to write personal essays, about a teacher of mine in undergrad, a history teacher, who died and left me $75,000 basically for a room of my own. In 2015, I detoured a bit from reporting and writing to serve as editor-in-chief of Baltimore City Paper, which was a way of continuing to explore Baltimore City, but in a different sort of way. One of the things that I have found really interesting is a quote of a quote. Claudia Rankine in Citizen quotes Baldwin and then Dostoevsky. She writes, "The purpose of art," James Baldwin wrote, "is to lay bare the questions hidden by the answers." He might have been channeling Dostoevsky's statement that we have all the answers. It's the questions we do not know. And I think that idea about questions was part of what drove me to take this job as editor of City Paper. And I think exploring the city and using the questions about what is wrong, what has gone wrong in our wonderful and yet deeply flawed city of Baltimore became kind of a driving question of our coverage as people wrote about the city for several years. And I've come to really enjoy editing stories about Baltimore as well as writing stories about Baltimore because despite the city's many flaws, there are also these really glorious, surprising, wonderful things about Baltimore. not least among them the many murals that you find sort of telling the stories of the city's life here. And that decades-long investigation into Baltimore has also carried over into my teaching in some surprising and fun ways. I recently, a couple years back, taught a class called 7 in the City, in which students spread out to investigate what it's like to be a 7-year-old growing up in Baltimore City, and how race and class and neighborhood impact kids' experience and their chances of succeeding and surviving in our city. That project was called 7 in the City and was based on the British documentary series called 7 Up that some of you may be familiar with. And if you're curious to take a look at it, you can go to 7inthecity.com. And when it comes to teaching, I love the residencies. Those are definitely the highlight of the year. So if I can do a little promo for that as your advisor and program director. 2018, we were in Dublin, Ireland, so spending our days reading Irish writers, spending our evenings drinking Irish whiskey and beer, Guinness. We traveled all around Dublin and had some really great conversations during the day. The next year, in 2019, we went to Missoula, Montana, which was also delightful, and read a lot of Western writers and looked at kind of the New West in terms of literature. Our evenings were spent with local writers reading from their work and talking with students about their experiences as writers. And next year, this summer, in July, we will be back in Bar Harbor, Maine. So I encourage you to ask me any questions you might have about the residencies as we go along, because they are a really terrific opportunity to dive deep into writing and spend a week nurturing your literary soul with a bunch of fellow writers. As for my non-professional life, I am married to Steve Nuns, who is a professor also, though he is a theater director and professor at Towson. And my son is in his 20s studying glass blowing. The love of my life is my dog Piper. And in my spare time, I like to hang out with my nieces and nephews, of whom I have many, and also to hang out with my friends. My hobbies are gardening. I have a garden plot in Druid Hill Park in Baltimore where I grow veggies and flowers, and that is my relaxing activity, I would say. I also volunteer for Reading Partners. That's my partner from last year, who's a kindergartner and adorable. And I am surviving COVID and very much looking forward to being able to hang out and socialize with my friends again sometime, and my sister, and to be able to go on vacation. And that's it.